So, covert creativity color. I did this earlier too. Covert creativity killers. All right, so first of all, I want to talk a little bit about what I mean when I talk about creativity. Because creativity, I think some of us have some ideas about creativity, and actually we're going to explore some of those today. When I'm talking about creativity, I'm talking about creativity in a very broad sense. Because my belief about creativity, my experience with creativity, is that it is in every one of us, and that it is at its most essential self. It is us. It is what we create in our lives. It is what we create with our thoughts. It is what our decisions that we make. And tell you, the relationships we choose to be in, all those things we are creating. We're creating our lives, which is really the ultimate form of creation. We can all be creative in different ways. So some of us are drawn to, well, actually, a lot of people are multi-passionate. You may have heard that term. There's a lot of multi-passionate creatives out there, which just means that they're not putting their creativity in a box, right? So you'll see this even with, I think about, was it Michael Jordan, who went from basketball to baseball? People who just have an interest, and then to golf, so his creativity came out in sports, right? Who knows? Maybe he wrote a book. He probably did. So that's a multi-passionate person. It's like the Renaissance man, right? And you probably know someone or in your life or as a friend or someone you've heard of that's not a celebrity, but who also is multi-passionate, super creative, super productive. But some of us, our creativity is a little more restricted, and we have restricted that creativity of our own accord, right? We've made choices. Oh, well, I'm a blah, blah, blah. I'm a painter. I'm a sewer. I'm a mixed media artist. I'm a dancer. Or I'm a chef. I'm a cook. I'm creative in the kitchen. I'm creative with raising my children. The creativity comes out in so many ways. So if you're coming into this and feeling like, oh, creativity is just one thing, I just suggest and invite you to widen that perspective and think about how creativity really applies in many areas of our lives. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about creativity. So what kills creativity? I have found, we're going to talk about two things today. The first is negative thoughts. Okay, so you should all have something to write with, I hope, and a pen or a pencil. Okay, so negative thoughts, I hear them often in my own head, and I also hear them from other people. And these negative thoughts are not limited to artistic creativity or creative expression. Negative thoughts will affect us across the board, but they will come up in various topics will cause them to arise. So the people that I'm meeting when I'm at events, and I'm talking about creativity and asking people about how they creatively express themselves. And you may be familiar with this too. If you are creative and you do art of any form, you've come across people who are like, oh, that's so amazing. I don't have a creative bone in my body, right? So that's a negative thought. It's a negative thought that stops you. It can make you feel bad too, right? Because you're comparing yourself to somebody else and coming up on the short end. So just take a moment and think about a negative thought that you may have in your life. And like I said, it doesn't have to be limited to creativity. So some things that I thought of, I don't know if I wrote them down or not, but when I was thinking about creativity, oh yeah. So even a negative thought like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, or I'm not good at whatever. Or even a negative thought like, well, this is stupid, right? It could be like casting something else in a negative light. So take a moment and just write down a negative thought that you're familiar with. The one that I want, the type of creativity killer that we're going to talk about in more depth right now is the limiting beliefs. And we don't even have to say limiting, just beliefs, okay? So if we just look at our beliefs, because that's really what we're looking for right now. And we're going to focus with this next step on creativity specifically. So take a moment and write down beliefs that you have about creativity, about creative expression. What does it mean to be creative? What does it mean to be an artist? These are just the things that you think of when you think of creativity, when you think of art, when you think of creative expression, when you think of artists. What are the beliefs that you have? And I find it's best with this type of exercise to try to continuously write. I call it free writing. So you can do this, sometimes it's easier in a narrative form. So you could write, creativity is beautiful, creativity is freeing, creativity is this, and you can just connect them, creativity is this, and I think creativity is this, and I think being an artist is this, and I think art is this, and I think creative expression is this, and just sort of let it roll along. Let your mind just spin things out without stopping, without judging, without spelling worries, without grammar worries. So you're just trying to get into actually a little bit more of the feeling level of these beliefs that you have about creativity and about art, being an artist. And I'll tell you, for me, if you got my email yesterday, you read about the story of what happened to me. I went off to college very early. I was only 16. I went for a year. And then I had to stop for some health reasons. And by the time I got back to going to school, I had this new belief. And it wasn't an uncommon belief. A lot of people have this belief. But I hadn't had the belief when I was 16. And then when I was like 18, 19, I had this belief, which was that getting an art degree was impractical. That I could never make a career out of art. But that was a belief that I held that I didn't really realize wasn't necessarily true. The belief was there and I was just like, oh yeah, right, of course. What was I thinking before when I was going to art school? All right, so hopefully you've got a list. I suggest going for about 25 just to push yourself. Like 25 is a pretty big number, right? Like you get to like 10 and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not even halfway there. But it helps because a lot of times when we do this type of work, we have to get through these sort of like layers, like peeling an onion, right? And get to a little bit more true beliefs that we have. Deeper beliefs, because there are like societal level beliefs and parental level beliefs, family level beliefs, things that we have, acquired. And then sometimes if you keep going, you can get even to deeper, more core beliefs. Step 2. I'm going to add this as a tip for the end. So now I want you, step 2, to look over your list. Try to see if there's anything in there that you would identify as possibly limiting. Is there anything on that list that could be construed as limiting? Limiting your creative expression, limiting your views of what creativity is. And when you find those, just highlight them or underline them or circle them. And then we're going to pick one to work with today. To ask yourself, is this thing true? Is this belief true? Do you know beyond a doubt that this belief is true? This is a Byron Katie technique, if you are familiar with Byron Katie. And this can be applied to any belief. It doesn't have to be limited to creativity. It can be really, really helpful in dislodging beliefs that are limiting you to go through this process of asking yourself if it's true. And then ask yourself again, is it really true? So for example, if one of my beliefs were that, belief like I won't be able to support myself selling my art. Okay, so there's a belief that is sort of back to that old one, right? That I said that I had right before I went back to college. And so I'd ask myself if that's true, and I don't know if that's true. I don't have any evidence that I cannot fully support myself by selling the art that I make. And even if it feels like it's true, right? The first time I ask myself, I might say, well, yeah, it's true because, I haven't been able to do it up till now. But is it really true? Well, I don't know. I don't know if it's really true. And that can just help your mind and your spirit grapple with that belief and start to dislodge it. Now I'm going to ask you to look back at your list and look at the things that you didn't underline and you didn't circle or highlight. And pick one of those and ask yourself the same question. So you might have, as an example here, this is just like totally making this up, but one belief that I wouldn't have highlighted in my list as being limiting would be art is beautiful. So art is beautiful. Is it true? Well, really, if I look at it, not all art is beautiful, right? So I don't even have to go to the, is it really true? Not all art is beautiful. But if I believed art was beautiful, can you see how that might limit you in your creative expression? If I believe that all art is beautiful or that art should be beautiful, then I'm going to want to make things that are beautiful. And there's nothing wrong with that. However, if that's what I start out with as a core belief, then it will act as a barrier and a restriction to my creative expression. So you can go through this, is it true? Is it really true? With every belief that you listed. So, another belief that, to be an artist, you have to have gone to art school. Many of you may be familiar with it's really easy, just Google like self-taught artists. A lot of self-taught artists who are really, really, really famous, like Vincent van Gogh, Grandma Moses, Frida Kahlo. So just go through your lists and do that. Just ask yourself those questions about them, about those beliefs, okay? And then as a last step, and this may be tricky, may be easy, think about what you could do between now and the end of the weekend that would challenge the belief that you picked today. So let's see. So if we said the belief was art is beautiful, could you make something without caring if it's beautiful before Sunday? Would that be really liberating? To just make something without caring what it looks like, without the belief that it has to be beautiful. And I'm going to leave you with a story that I think pertains to this particular belief and may inspire you. The first workshop I ever led in 2017 on Monhegan Island in Maine, it was a free workshop. People just donated materials. I was trying to get some experience. And a wonderful mom and her 16-year-old daughter came to this workshop. And if any of you are familiar with Monhegan Island, beautiful place, lots of artists go there. Jamie Wyeth is out there, who's Andrew Wyeth's son. He has a house out there. And so it's a real artist community in the summers. And there's a place called the Trailing U, and that's where the workshop was. It was outside on the lawn. It was a beautiful day. It was the day of the eclipse of the sun that happened. I don't know if you guys remember that in 2017. And this young woman, the 16-year-old, she, I led them through this process. that I teach now in my workshops, and I go through also in this class I'm launching in October. And she, you kind of monitor how people are feeling about their work, and I could see she was not happy. She was just sitting there and kind of like brooding, definitely brooding. And she was feeling badly about herself. It brought up all kinds of the painting process and everything that we did, brought up all kinds of her own negative thoughts and limiting beliefs, and they were overwhelming her. And she said she hated her painting. She said she thought it was ugly. And these were things that she felt about herself, right? So I worked with her, and she really didn't want to do anything at all with the painting. And then I suggested that since she felt so much anger, that it might be helpful to use her paintbrush and just sort of bash at her canvas, right? And she did. And she took 2 brushes and she started really getting crazy and loose and whacking the canvas. And at one point they were some of those, like the party pack canvases that you can get at Michael's and AC Moore. So they're not very thick canvas. And the paintbrush broke through in a couple places. And we got it done, and it moved all this emotion. So all those negative feelings she'd had, all those negative thoughts, all those limiting beliefs, she was able to move that energy up and out and throw it out at that canvas. And at the end of the workshop, I went up to her and I said, if you want to, save or preserve your canvas, you can always, I don't know what I said, stitch together those things that are broken or something where the canvas had broken through. And she looked at me with clear eyes and just, that wonderful feeling you have when you have purged yourself of something really intense and negative and uncomfortable. And she said, "No, I love it now." Right? This was a piece that she had hated, and she loved it. It was not beautiful, but it was beautiful. So that's I think, a lovely story. I hope that inspired you a bit. It always inspires me. I love revisiting it. So, but my invitation to you this weekend is to do just that, to challenge one of those beliefs that you have about creativity, about being an artist. Be creative in how you challenge it, and then share it here in this group. I would love to know what you come up with. As I said, I look forward to hearing from you, seeing what you come up with for challenging your covert creativity killers. All right. Thank you so much for being with me. I hope this was enjoyable.